What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So a couple weeks ago we tackled one of the biggest mysteries in Pokemon, that being the unknown, but there are far more mysterious questions in the Pokemon world than just that. The Pokemon games have indeed given us a lot of mystery over the years, and there are some burning questions out there that we absolutely need answers to. So in this video, I'm going to cover 5 Pokemon questions we need answers to. I'm going to dissect all of these different scenarios and try and figure out what's going on, as well as try and give some possible answers. With all that being said though, let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so this first question is one that admittedly a lot of people don't talk about, but I feel like it should be talked about more often because it's a really interesting subject, and that is the fact of why every single species of Pokemon lay eggs. I discussed this in a theory of my own a while ago that you can check out if you're interested, but basically the question here is why every single species of Pokemon lays eggs. Obviously in our own world, laying eggs is a feature exclusive to animals like reptiles and birds. However, in the Pokemon world, literally every single species of Pokemon lays eggs, regardless of whether it's a reptile Pokemon, a bird Pokemon, or even a mammal Pokemon, which is where it starts to get unusual. In terms of gameplay, it's pretty obvious that Game Freak just gave every Pokemon the ability to lay eggs to make the breeding mechanic run more smoothly. However, in terms of in-game lore, this topic could be explored so much more than it already is, and we could get such a cool and fascinating answer if Game Freak would take the time to actually explore it. In my theory video that I mentioned earlier, I gave what I believe is a pretty cool and likely answer. I don't want to spoil it though, so go check that video out if you're interested in learning more. However, I also believe that this topic could be perfectly addressed in an anime episode. Like, I feel like this is the perfect plotline that could be discussed in the anime, and even if it's kind of a throwaway type of answer that would be given in the anime, at least this topic would be covered, which I think it sorely needs to be. Okay, this next one, if it is ever going to get answered, actually has a golden opportunity to do so within the next few years, and that is the question, what exactly happened to Syrus after he was defeated in the Distortion World in Pokemon Platinum? In most Pokemon games, after you defeat the evil team's leader for the final time, basically what happens is that the evil team disbands, the evil team leader admits defeat, and they basically just give up and go into exile. However, in Pokemon Platinum, this is not what happened with Syrus. After you defeat Syrus for the final time in the Distortion World, and after you beat/capture Giratina in the Distortion World, Syrus will go on one final rant explaining why we need to have a world without spirit, and instead of admitting defeat and going into exile, he claims to you that he will not rest, and that one day you will wake up to a world of his creation without spirit, and instead of heading back through the portal that leads back into the regular world, he actually heads the other way, further into the depths of the Distortion World. Now this is where the question truly begins, because if he didn't head back into Sinnoh and into the regular world, what exactly is he doing in the Distortion World? What is his ultimate fate? Did he really head into another sort of dimension to build a world without spirit, and are we actually ever going to see him return from the Distortion World? These are all burning questions that really should get an answer and have the golden opportunity to do so in a Diamond and Pearl remake, and would make for an amazing plotline and even a post-game plotline similar to the Delta episode. So please, 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 Game Freak, please give us these answers when you eventually remake Gen 4, because it would just be fantastic. Speaking of remakes, another question that has the opportunity to be answered in a remake, should this remake ever happen, is what exactly the Kyurem, Reshiram, Zekrom fused dragon actually looks like. In the story of Black and White, it is stated that long ago there was once an amazing dragon Pokemon that lived in the Unova region that was actually split apart into Reshiram and Zekrom over two brothers' fight between what was more important, between truth and ideals. When this Pokemon was split apart, it left a shell behind as well, which ended up being Kyurem, so in reality, Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem are 3 parts of a whole dragon Pokemon that we have actually never ever seen yet. Obviously, 2 out of the 3 parts were fused back together in Black 2 and White 2, depending on which version you played, but we still haven't got a chance to see what this incredible dragon Pokemon looks like. And when Game Freak comes out and says, oh yeah, there was this incredible Pokemon, but you don't get to see it, and oh, by the way, it is created by fusing these 3 already incredible legendary dragon Pokemon, that kind of leaves us fans wanting to see what this amazing, incredible dragon Pokemon could actually look like. And as I mentioned earlier, if we ever do get black and white remakes 10 or so years down the line, this would be the perfect plotline to cover. It would even be the perfect plotline to cover if Game Freak decided to do a unified game where they basically covered both games in one, or if they used a unified plot in both games, similar to how they kind of used the Crystal plot in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. However, since this Pokemon is obviously tied to the history and story of Unova, the only real chance we ever have to see this question answered is in a black and white remake, so I am sincerely crossing my fingers that we do actually get this answered, and even though it's gonna be like 10 years in the future if it ever happens, and I'll be like 30 plus years old, you better believe I'm still gonna be playing Pokemon at that time, and you better believe I'll be hyped as heck if Game Freak actually gives it to us. Our fourth question is one that probably won't ever get answered because it's not really significant enough to be addressed in any future game, but it's still really interesting and noteworthy, and that is exactly what happened between Professor Oak and Agatha to make Agatha hate Professor Oak. Now, in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, a bit of backstory is given between these two characters where Agatha actually tells you that she once used to really admire Professor Oak, and they once used to have a sort of friend relationship, and she even calls him handsome in the game, suggesting that maybe she actually even liked him as more than a friend. However, as you can quickly tell in the Generation 1 games, Agatha has now become a bitter old woman, and she now resents Oak and calls him weak for not fighting Pokemon and choosing to research them instead. Now, at the end of the day, this is the reason that the Pokemon games give us as to why these two characters grew apart. Agatha was strong and wanted to battle Pokemon, while Professor Oak decided he wanted to research Pokemon, and Agatha thought that was weak and stupid, and she just hated him for that. However, the more you kind of explain this to yourself, the more it kind of seems like there's gotta be more going on to this scenario than just that. Now, if I personally liked someone as much as it seems like Agatha used to like Professor Oak when they were younger, I wouldn't instantly change my mind and hate that person just because they made a slightly different life choice. It obviously seems like there's more going on to the rift between Agatha and Professor Oak, and I would absolutely love to see it explored, and I really think it could make for an amazing plotline, storyline, or even game if Nintendo decided to bless us with a Generation Zero prequel type game starring Agatha and Professor Oak as young children. Like I said, this is fan fiction, pipe dream type of stuff we're talking about here in terms of getting this question answered, but it's obviously a legitimate question featuring iconic characters that could have an amazing story to be told, so I would really kill to just see this answered in any way, shape, or form at some point in the future. And last but not least, we have got a doozy to cover, because this doozy is not one particular moment or point in time or specific part of a generation. It is literally all of a generation, and that would be Kalos. Just literally all of Kalos. What is going on here? Now, I've stated before that Kalos is one of my favorite regions and that X and Y are one of my favorite Pokemon games ever. However, I will not sugarcoat it when I say that Kalos is just a big fat unanswered question, and so many things about the X and Y games have been left unfinished. So I couldn't really narrow it down to one specific unanswered question in Generation 6 because there's so many, so I just decided to include the region as a whole. You've obviously got what is going on with the power plant? What's the story there? Does it involve Volcanion? You've obviously got what the heck happened to Eternal Flower Floette? What was going to be the story there? Why was that cut from the game? You've got the question of what is going on with the Ghost Girl? Was that just a random Easter egg, or is there more going on there? There's so many freaking questions. Oh, by the way, Zygarde. What happened to freaking Zygarde? And of course, tying all of these questions up into one big giant package is why was Kalos left in this unfinished state? I feel like this is a question that Game Freak could address at some point in the future because it's very clear that X and Y had more planned for it than ultimately was given to it. And it's completely obvious that X and Y and the Kalos region as a whole was just left terribly unfinished, so even though if we don't get any of these specific in-game questions answered, I would at least like an explanation from Game Freak as to why they left so many things about Kalos and Generation 6 unfinished, so we could at least least get some closure and not have to wonder for the rest of our lives what could have been with this generation. And there we have it, everybody. Now, aside from the obvious things that make Pokemon games so much fun, mysteries like these really add to the enjoyment of the games, and even though it's probably best to leave some things unanswered, I really hope one day we'll get an answer to at least a couple of these questions. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know down in the comments below what you believe the answer to some of these questions are, or if you have another question you think we really need an answer to. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and follow me on Spotify for Pokemon remixes, as well as for a chance to win a copy of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee when the games come out. We're currently over halfway to our follower goal, as well as over halfway to our listener goal, so we're well on our way with still a few months to go, so there's plenty of time to make this happen. With all that being said though, I will be back on Thursday for another video, so hit that notification bell so you can know when it goes live. I hope you guys have a great Tuesday and Wednesday, and until the next one, as always, I will smell you guys later.